By the early 1880s, the United States Census Bureau faced a problem that did not announce itself loudly. It appeared quietly in columns of ink and in gaps where names should have been. In several counties across the Deep South and parts of the border states, formerly enslaved men and women recorded in the 1870 census no longer appeared a decade later. The records did not mark them as deceased. They had not migrated in documented numbers to northern industrial centers. They were simply absent. Contemporary clerks made no special notation. The ledgers were closed. Life moved on. Archived county records from Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, Louisiana, and eastern Texas suggest that entire clusters of black households disappeared from tax rolls between 1878 and 1885. Freed people who had briefly appeared as land renters, sharecroppers, or wage laborers vanished from legal visibility. In many cases, their names appear one last time in court dockets, often related to minor charges such as vagrancy, loitering, or failure to produce proof of employment. After that, silence. Local newspapers of the 1880s occasionally printed brief notices. A line would appear noting "colored laborers removed" or "hands reassigned to county work." These phrases carried specific meaning in the post-Reconstruction South. They often referred to arrest, followed by forced labor under county or private contracts, a system now documented by historians as convict leasing. Medical examiners' reports from the era, sparse and inconsistent, list unidentified black males buried in potter's fields. Few ages are given. Causes of death are vague: exhaustion, fever, injury sustained during labor. Names are absent. No coordinated investigation followed. No federal inquiry was opened. Local sheriffs, justices of the peace, and county commissioners controlled the records. Their documents, preserved in state archives, reflect procedure but not concern. What emerges from these materials is not a single crime scene, but a pattern. Freedom had been declared. Legal bondage had ended. Yet disappearance followed emancipation with alarming regularity. This documentary does not tell a story of mystery solved. It presents what the 1880s themselves recorded and what they chose not to pursue. The 1880s were shaped by the collapse of Reconstruction. Federal troops had withdrawn from the South in 1877, and with them went enforcement of civil protections promised after the Civil War. State governments rapidly reasserted local control, often through laws designed to regulate labor rather than ensure liberty. Black Americans, newly freed but economically vulnerable, were bound into systems of dependency. Sharecropping contracts, documented in county courthouses, reveal exploitative terms that kept families perpetually in debt. Failure to meet these obligations frequently resulted in arrest. Vagrancy statutes, common across southern states, allowed law enforcement to detain individuals unable to prove employment. Arrest records from the period show disproportionate targeting of black men. Once convicted, often without legal representation, they could be leased to private enterprises, mines, lumber camps, turpentine farms, railroad projects. The practice was legal. State legislation sanctioned it. Corporate records from mining companies and rail contractors list payments made directly to county governments in exchange for convict labor. Prisoners were not paid. Mortality rates were high. The social order was rigidly enforced. White supremacy was not merely cultural, it was administrative. Black testimony rarely carried weight in court. Local newspapers frequently justified harsh measures as necessary for order and industry. In this environment, disappearance was not always sudden. It could be administrative. A man arrested for vagrancy would be transferred to a labor camp 50 or 100 miles away. His family might never be informed. No return date was guaranteed. The 1880s did not lack documentation. They lacked accountability. The records do not speak in personal voices. They speak in categories. Sheriffs, county judges, leasing agents, plantation owners, and industrial contractors appear repeatedly in documents. Their names are preserved. The names of the laborers are often not. Court logs from the early 1880s show spikes in arrests following harvest seasons. Freedmen seeking work beyond plantations were frequently detained. Charges were minimal, sentences were severe. Industrial payroll records from coal mines in Alabama list county hands assigned by number rather than name. Mortality notations appear beside some entries. Replacement workers were requested within days. Escalation came not through violence alone, but through normalization. Forced labor became routine. Deaths were expected. Absence was accepted. Families left behind petitioned local officials. Some letters survive. They ask for information. They receive none. The people involved did not need secrecy. The system operated openly.
What the documents reveal most clearly is absence of follow-up. No comprehensive investigations appear in state archives. No federal response is recorded. When deaths occurred, coroners' inquests were brief or non-existent. Newspapers occasionally reported deaths as accidents. They did not ask why conditions were lethal. The silence was structural. Responsibility was diffused across institutions that benefited from the system.
By the end of the 1880s, the pattern was entrenched. The disappeared were rarely acknowledged. Their labor fueled infrastructure. Their absence reshaped communities. Modern historians, relying on these same records, have reconstructed the scale of loss. They speak cautiously. Numbers vary. Certainty is impossible. What remains undeniable is the silence. Freedom was declared. Records were kept. And when people vanished, the world stayed quiet.